education doesn't stop.
When people can see their own authentic lived experience on a screen, on a Fishbowl interview, it changes how they see themselves.
It's going to be nothing but fun.
We're one people, we're one family, we live in the same house.
The answers to really hard questions come when you least expect it.
The second that you think you've learned what there is to learn is the second you're unwinding as a professional.
I really hope that whoever's watching is like taking a minute to absorb how everybody has a story.
Hi everyone, I'm Colleen Aubrey. I'm Senior Vice President of Ad Products and Tech at Amazon. I'm very excited to be here today as a moderator of our Fishbowl. And it's a conversation where I have the pleasure of interviewing Shelmina Abji. Before becoming a publisher, a published author, not a publisher, Shelmina established a very impressive career in technology and eventually is one of the most senior women of color at IBM. She's led global teams, she's hired and promoted countless professionals, and throughout her career has dedicated herself to advancement of gender and racial equality in the workplace. Her experience inspired her to write a book, Show Your Worth, 8 Intentional Strategies for Women to Emerge as Leaders at Work. It's a great read and a practical guide. It's an honor for me to be able to host Shelmina in the conversation today, and I can't wait to hear what she has to share. Please join me in welcoming Shelmina Abji to the stage. I'm so confident.
Wow.
Well, welcome, Shelmina. Really great to have you. And thank you very much for making the time to sit down with us today and to talk about your book. You have quite an interesting background. And to start, I think we'd love to hear you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to where you are today.
Yeah. So I started with very humble beginnings in Tanzania. And I was inspired by my mom in 3rd grade to get good grades. And when I was able to achieve that, I started dreaming bigger. I thought I could obtain a college degree. I firmly believed that if I obtained a college degree, I could lift my family and myself out of poverty. There were just a few challenges. There was no education past 10th grade in the town in which I was born. No one in our family had been to college. We had no disposable income, and families like us would not qualify for a bank loan. But I was determined that if I got a college degree, I would lift us out of poverty. So that journey led me, it's a longer story, but I'm giving you a short version so we can get to the book. It led me to come to the United States to pursue a degree in computer science, because even in those days, degrees with computer science made money. I went to a small university in Wisconsin, La Crosse. So no one came to my college to interview people. And I was on a student visa, which means I only had a visa to work for 1 year. So I went to a conference, it's called ACM, it still exists. And I handed out over 300 resumes, and no one would even interview me, even though I was on the dean's list. I had worked 35, 40 hours a week in addition to my computer science workload. They were not interested because I didn't have the right visa. On the last day of the conference, one technology startup company in St. Paul, Minnesota, called ETA Systems, gave me a job. And their offer of $27,000 a year was more money than my parents could make in 10 years. And I thought, that's it. We're never going to be poor again. It was not that simple, of course. However, I got a lot of opportunities and a lot of help from people because I had to navigate what success meant in corporate America. There was no one I could identify with. There was no one I could relate to. And so I had a lot of learning. And there were a lot of people that helped me along the way. And every time someone would help me, I would question, how can I help them? But I wasn't in a position to help them. They were in a position to help me. And so at the peak of my career in 2014, to thank the universe for the opportunities I had, because Colleen, there are so many women, including where I come from, they simply don't get the opportunities. And so I was very grateful that I had these opportunities. I also wanted to honor the people that helped me along the way. And so the next title, the next paycheck didn't hold the same significance. What held significance was, how was I going to pay forward? How was I going to take everything that has been given to me and help others succeed, because so many had helped me. And so I started mentoring hundreds of women. I started speaking at conferences, at colleges, and I started sharing strategies that I had used during my career that had helped me with where I had reached. What I learned, Colleen, is women have shared experiences. It didn't matter whether I was speaking in the US or in India or in Nairobi, Kenya, or in Brazil. There were women who were ambitious. They wanted to succeed, but they didn't know how. They were searching for a blueprint from someone they could relate to, someone they could identify with. And so I started sharing my strategies. And then there were women who were disheartened. They were disheartened because they didn't see leaders that looked like them. And so they felt that leadership was not for them. And so they were opting out of the leadership pipeline. And then there were mothers and single mothers who thought that they couldn't achieve success in corporate America while taking care of their children. And so I shared with them how I did it as a single mom since my children were 2 and 4. And so in 2014, I left my career. In 2018, around Thanksgiving, it was almost as if the universe was conspiring to deliver a message. Around Thanksgiving, most of us take stock of our year and we reach out to people that have helped us, that we are grateful for. And within a span of 10 days, I had over 200 messages. Phone calls, email messages, LinkedIn messages, from women reminding me and telling me how my insights had helped them. Some would say, remember that conversation, because of that, I got promoted. And that would make me happy. Remember that conversation, because of that, I have a better relationship with my boss. And I thought, that's great. Remember that conversation, because of that, I'm stepping outside my comfort zone. But there were a few messages that really tugged at my heart. And those messages were along those lines. I used to believe that if I didn't see it, I couldn't become it. You changed my belief. You made me realize I didn't have to see it to become it. I could become the change I want to see. And then there were single mothers, immigrants, women of color, who were really struggling. And when they told me that I gave them hope, that they could succeed and be a mom, it emboldened me. I started dreaming bigger. I thought, if I have been able to change the career trajectories of people, women, other underrepresented minorities, who had the fortune, or I had the fortune to interact with them, I can now increase my sphere of influence and impact. I will write a book. I will write a book that can reach millions of women globally. I will become a change agent to advance gender and racial equality in leadership roles. And so that's what's got me here.
And here we are.
And here we are.
I have one question. So you're in high school, and how did you escape your own, in a way, your own head, your own environment, to see yourself in something distinctly different that I am assuming that you had never experienced until then? Like how do you think about that moment of thinking, there must, I see myself somewhere different and somewhere that I'm not familiar with. I don't know what it looks like, but I know it's not here. Yeah. Is there a moment there for you, or a trigger that got you there, or was it sort of just a feeling that there was a different destination?
I didn't see myself somewhere different. I just wanted to lift myself out of poverty. I was consumed by the desire to lift us out of poverty. And so I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't see me with a college degree. I was just so focused. And Colleen, my first degree I got from India. A woman gave us a loan of $500. And I cried myself to sleep. I was so lonely. My parents didn't even own a phone, so I didn't have a way to communicate with them. I didn't like the food that they served in the cafeterias because it was the same food, and my mom was a great cook. That's how she raised us, by the way, by cooking for others. Mm-hmm. But I was able to minimize all that because my desire to lift myself and my family out of poverty was just so intense that just played big in my mind. And everything else just didn't.
What I like about your story is just that, I think I observe people to struggle with trying to define who they want to be, where they want to be, what success looks like, what their career should look like. And from my experience, and it sounds like your experience, it's not so much of defining what it will be, but rather knowing it's not where you are. And being willing to embrace that ambiguity and just go and push and drive and search. Being open to everything versus trying to choose a destination.
Yeah. I did that before I got my college degree. And then when we get to the rest of the questions, you will see how I shortchanged my success when I started my career, and we'll talk more about that.
Let's get into it then.
Yeah.
So the book, for me, it took a very pragmatic approach to thinking about, showing your worth in your career and building the career that you're looking for. The challenge is everyone's work experience is a little bit different. So I was interested in hearing about some of the challenges that you faced when you started and how you overcame them.
Yeah. And so that's a great question, because it kind of goes back to the question that Colleen was asking earlier. So you heard where I came from. I was very bold. I left home at 15, pursued that college degree because I wanted to lift myself out of poverty, which I did when I got my degree for a short time. But as soon as I started working, initially I have this spring in my step because I'm going to lift my family out of poverty. I'm going to pour my heart and soul into my job. And then, within a few weeks, I realized that in a team of 2,000 engineers, this was basically an engineering company, I was the only woman of color. The only woman of color. I also started realizing, because by now, I knew there was such a thing as Ivy League education. When I first applied to University of Wisconsin in La Crosse, this is before the days of the internet, I didn't know that there was such a thing as a higher ranked university, lower ranked university. I just applied to one university because my brother knew someone that went there. But by now, I'm aware that I went to a small university. So I'm looking around. People have master's degrees, PhDs, Carnegie Mellon, Harvard, Princeton. They were a technology startup company. Everyone spoke better English than I did. Everyone came from a better socioeconomic background, so they wore better clothes than I did. It was all these things I started noticing, and all of a sudden, in my own head, in my own mind, and I want you to take this away, I created these barriers for myself. The story you tell yourself about yourself is the most powerful story in the world. And so I started thinking, what value would I create? What would I know that they don't already know? Immediately, I started undermining my capabilities, and I convinced myself that my ideas won't matter, because no matter what idea I had, everyone else must know that. And so what that did was it instilled fear of speaking up. So I did a really good job in my own project, but I never spoke up in meetings, and oftentimes even in a one-on-one conversation. But I was very aware, Colleen, that if I didn't find a way to contribute unique value, if I was easily replaceable, my company by law was required to replace me with someone who had the right visa. So I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. Here I'm afraid to speak up, so I'm not really able to contribute unique value towards the success of my organization and make myself irreplaceable or difficult to replace. And here I am afraid to speak up. And here, if I don't speak up, I won't get the visa. And so, as the universe would have it, this is why I want to pay forward. I feel like as the universe would have it, 3 months into this, on a Tuesday afternoon, we had an issue with testing our software. And I had this really great idea. But fear grips me. Don't speak up. You might sound stupid. They might even fire you. So I just smile and I sit there in the meeting. And it was as if my idea jumped from my head into the head of the guy sitting right across from me, and he stated what I was thinking. I retreated into the bathroom because when he did that, the room lit up. Everyone started congratulating him, pats on his back. And I heard someone say, what a unique way of solving this problem. And here I'm thinking, oh my God, that could have been me. So I go into the bathroom, I look at myself in the mirror and I say, that could have been me. You should have spoken up. Your ideas matter. That inner victory in my own head, that shift in my mindset from your ideas don't matter to your ideas do matter, or my ideas don't matter to my ideas do matter, was the beginning of me learning how to speak up. And I told myself, listen, it doesn't matter that they're more educated than you are. It doesn't matter that they don't look like you. It doesn't matter that they speak better English than you do. It doesn't matter that they wear better clothes than you do. What matters is that you have value to create. That will make your organization successful. Unique value that will make you difficult to replace. And so the next time I had an idea, of course, fear shows up even today. It's going to show up. And courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing what you must do, even though you are afraid. And so, of course, fear shows up, don't speak up, they're going to think you're stupid, they're going to fire you. But that day, there was this tiny voice of courage. It was fueled by my own mental chatter that said, my ideas matter. And that voice of courage got louder. Speak up, Shelmina. You might be able to create, you will be able to create unique value. If you create unique value, they will keep you, they will extend your visa. You will never have to be poor again. And that did it. So I spoke up, I stated my idea, but I couldn't even breathe until that my stomach was in knots. Until that entire idea was stated, I didn't even breathe. But when I stated my idea, and it was well received, that changed everything. it didn't get my fear to disappear, but it got me to believe that I have unique value to contribute. I can contribute value that will make my organization successful. Because if you are contributing value just in your own project, anyone else can do that. But when you start contributing value, and when you lean into your authenticity, your unique journey, your diversity of thought, the thinking that you have that nobody else has, you see, difference is good. Because the way you think, no one else does. And so when you lean into that and you start creating value, not only will your organization become more innovative, more competitive, but you will also feel good about what you're able to do towards the success of your organization. And that feeling fuels you every single day.
And so, Shelmina, you get to that point, you're like, so you realize, actually, I have good ideas. I can make a contribution here. There's still that piece of finding your courage and giving yourself that boost of confidence to share that idea, to advocate for your idea. Was there something different that you did that helped you to sort of fuel that confidence in that and jump, make that leap of faith to say, actually, I should get this out here?
Yeah, I'm so glad you're digging deeper into this, because I have a TEDx talk about this, because I learned a few things. In that instant, I realized that these voices were in my head. The voice of fear, the voice of courage. I also realized that I could hear them and that I have the power to manage those voices.
And not crazy. Could hear, not crazy.
Exactly, exactly.
It's an important distinction.
Yes, and that was the day I actually coined a term which is all over my book. And frankly, it is the foundation of my success. The term is power quotient. Just like you have IQ, just like you have EQ, you also have PQ. And your PQ is intentionally choosing a response. There will be multiple voices in your head. You have the power to scan your mental chatter. You can detach yourself, because you're not the voices in your head. You can detach yourself, scan your mental chatter, take a deep breath, and feed the voice that will enable you to show your worth. And pick that voice. Use that voice to pick your response. And so understand that no matter what is going on, you own your responses. You have the power to pick your response. Yes, you may be afraid. Yes, there is that voice of fear, but there's also that voice of courage. And so use that power quotient. We all have it. When we don't intentionally pick our responses, we are gift wrapping our own power and giving it to someone else.
I'm just going to digress a little bit. There's an ad for Australia, and the tagline is, "If you'll never, never know if you never, ever go."
Yes.
And this is, for me, hearing Shelmina's story, it's like, you won't ever know how good your ideas are, how strong your voice can be, if you never give it a go. Yes. And so there you go, Australian tourism. Never, never know if you never, never go.
I love it. I love it.
Back to you, Shelmina.
Yes.
So, in your book, you talk about this sort of importance of stepping out of your comfort zone. And this is a good example of that first sort of push in your first role as an engineer, to step outside your comfort zone. And for me, I think my own ambition led me to move quickly to focus on delivering results, creating this value that you're talking about. And then also to ask for opportunities. I create a value now, that gives me permission to ask for opportunities. And then I also realized there's some things I don't control. I don't control promotion. That's an output. It's not something that I get to put my hands on. So what was your approach as you went through your career of growing and stretching yourself and continuing to push yourself outside your comfort zone?
There are, first of all, what you said about things you can't control. This is so important for us to understand. Before I even answer the question about pushing myself outside my comfort zone, I want us to recognize that we have limited energy. Every ounce of energy you put towards something you don't control, you're taking it away from something you can control. So just remember that. There are things you can control, and there are things you cannot control. Now let me go to answering your question about stepping outside my comfort zone. So one of the things I learned, and I talk about in my book, you know what's exciting about this is, Colleen, the higher up I rose in my career, the more I learned. And I've taken 30 years of my learning, and I've put it into this book, so everyone has access to that knowledge. And so the higher up I rose, the more I learned. And what I learned is that the more competent you are, the more value you can create. So early on in my career, as you saw, I saw the importance of value creation. But then I also learned that if you create value at the same level, you're not going to move ahead. You need to create higher levels of value. And how are you going to do that? One of the best ways to do it is to step outside your comfort zone and learn new competencies. The more competent you are, the better value you will create. And what I would like to leave with you is, when you step outside your comfort zone, there is no such thing as failure. It's just varying degrees of success. I will share a small story here. Is when I wanted to become an IBM executive, I had spent years in IBM's hardware business. But IBM's hardware business was shrinking. IBM's software and services business was growing. And so my mentor recommended that I move into an area which is experiencing growth, because that's where the openings for executives will be. And so I said, okay, the one thing I have done is I have always taken a chance on myself. And that's another takeaway. If you don't take a chance on yourself, you can't expect anyone else to. You see, the world takes you at your own estimate. So you have to show people that you are willing to take a chance on yourself, you are willing to step outside your comfort zone, so they will support you. And so what I did was I took on a role, and I stepped a little too outside my comfort zone. This is why I want to share there's no such thing as failure. And I was a second-line sales manager with a $950 million business annually, 120 people reporting to me, 5 sales leaders. Every executive knew me, all my team knew me. I was excelling at what I did. Now I go into a role I know nothing about, into an organization I know nothing about. Just like at Amazon, even at IBM, when you're a large corporation, when you move into a completely different line of business, it is like doing a job somewhere else. And so now my team, I had all the states west of the Mississippi, and my first conference call, we were talking about the major deals of the quarter that will enable us to make the target. Colleen, I couldn't even understand 75% of the terminology they were using. You know, technology is notorious for using terminology. I mean, acronyms. It's a completely different terminology. Now I'm sweating bullets. I'm thinking I'm supposed to lead this team. I can't even understand what they're talking about. How am I going to create value? Again, my mind is all about value creation. How am I even going to ask questions? And so I'm sweating bullets thinking which part of me was stupid enough to leave a job I was excelling at and take this job, and I don't even understand what they're talking about. Luckily, by then, I had surrounded myself with some mentors, great mentors. This is why I want to honor them by paying forward. And I went to her and I said, I've made the worst mistake of my career, shouldn't have taken this role. Being an IBM executive is not in the cards for me. I should just go back to doing what I was doing so well. She says, Shelmina, you just got hired on here. You're not expected to create value on day one. You are expected to listen and learn. They hired you not because you understand the business of service delivery. They already understand that. They hired you because you are a great sales leader, and that's what they need. So listen, learn, understand their business, and then when you bring your sales leadership and they have the service delivery, that's when magic will happen. And so I said, okay. Took a deep breath and I said, okay, I'm going to listen and learn, which I did. I learned from my team, I learned from my sales leaders, I learned from my customers, etc. And I created an entire different go-to-market strategy based on my learning. But by the time I did that, our quarter had ended, and I did not make my quarter. In fact, I was the last in the nation. You know, I was used to being the first. I was used to being the person that got the awards and recognition, and I was used to that. And here I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm such a failure. But by then, I had learned to use my power quotient. Couldn't control the last quarter. It's done. Didn't make my numbers. It's done. But I can take the learnings and I can move forward and make better decisions. So this is what I mean by there is no failure when you step outside your comfort zone, when you learn new competencies, because those competencies will accelerate your future success. And that's exactly what happened. By the time the year ended, my team was number one. No one even remembered that I had messed up one quarter, and I had made such a big deal of that in my own head because I was not used to not making my quarterly numbers. You see, your career is a long game. When you invest in building competencies, when you step outside your comfort zone, it's scary. But you know what's scarier is never stepping outside your comfort zone and not knowing what your capabilities are. That Australian saying, say it again?
If you'll never know, if you never ever go.
There you go. Same thing, right? It's scary, but you must intentionally step outside your comfort zone. Because just like I had no idea what I was capable of doing, you have no idea. You need to push yourself outside your comfort zone to learn. And you will learn what you're great at. You will also learn what you're not good at. You will learn what culture you thrive in and what culture you don't thrive in. All that learning will enable you to make better future decisions, and it will accelerate your success. It will enable you to show your worth.
What I really like about your story, and something like related to Amazon, you know, that IBM gave you the opportunity to step outside your comfort zone because they knew what you were great at, and they were willing to give you an opportunity to learn and stretch and go somewhere else, but knew that you were bringing a whole set of competencies that they liked. I think this has sort of also been my experience at Amazon. You develop a set of skills, you develop some capabilities that are important, and there's opportunities that come to stretch yourself and learn. And I encourage people to embrace them because they're not always available. And I think at companies like IBM and Amazon, they become available, and it's super valuable.
They become available. Raise your hand for it. Let it be known that you want assignments that will grow you, that will create more value for the organization. So it's not just about your growth. This is a win-win. When you step outside your comfort zone and you grow and you deliver higher value, not only do you succeed, but you make your organization more successful. It's a win-win.
So next question, I wanted to talk about mentorship.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through, like, how do you think about mentorship? Why is it important? What advice can you share for those people in the room and on the live stream that are looking for the benefit of mentorship?
Yeah. You know, mentorship is something that is widely discussed. You read it in every magazine, any conference you go to, people talk about mentors. People will ask you, do you have mentors? And most people will say yes. In today's day and age, most people have mentors. However, in my book, I teach you to become intentional about understanding why do you want a mentor and who your mentor should be. You see, everyone means well, but they can advise you based on their capacity. So you need to find mentors from whom you can learn some expertise, who is going to see potential in you, who will share with you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. After your mentoring session, if you're the same person that went into the session as you come out, that session was wasted. So you have to go in intentionally to want to learn something from your mentor. It's one thing to find the right mentor, and it's another thing to keep that relationship. Because you have to show your mentor the willingness to do the work, that you are using their time effectively, you are making progress, you are learning. So find the right mentors, find the mentors that you respect, that you admire, that you will learn from, that will push you outside your comfort zone, that will lead you on even when you feel like you failed. And they'll tell you, no, you didn't fail, just like my mentor did. And so become intentional about who they are, and then let them know that they are using their time effectively because you are growing as a result of the time they're spending with you. So I go into details of different types of mentors, how to look for mentors, why to look for mentors, and your mentors will change depending on where you are in your career. So you must have that awareness of what do you need to grow? What do you need to show your worth? Who can help you? And then go find them.
I think it's super interesting feedback and important feedback because it's not a checkbox. It's not like recipe for great career, mentor, check. It's not really how it works. And I think that's the important takeaway. It's really about what is it you need help with and being deliberate about who's best in class. Yes. And what makes sense in terms of getting their help.
Absolutely. I love that. It's not a checkbox, because everyone will check that box, but you need to dig deeper. And that's what I go into.
So Shelmina, I think we have some audience questions that we wanted to get to. So let me see. I have to read here. It's been changing. It's been very exciting. So we have some questions from the room and some virtual. So maybe we could actually go to a question from the room. I think that's what we're supposed to do. Yes, and the question is, how do you handle personality criticisms that you know is rooted in bias?
That you know is rooted in bias.
That's the important bit.
That is the important. If it is rooted in bias, you owe it to yourself to actually show your worth to change the bias. Each one of us need to take over this responsibility that we want to chip away at that bias. And so understand the whys of everything. Always be asking, why did she say this? Why did he say that? And if it is rooted in bias, you don't have to give your power away to that person. But you have to show that person that you're not that personality that was given to you. You need to show that person, you need to show your worth, and you need to educate people along the way. Because I don't know where people get biases from. Some are conscious, some are unconscious. But you have a choice of allowing that bias to stop you and derail your career, or to use that bias as a motivation to show your worth. What will you pick? That's your power. Use your power quotient.
I like the delete button, personally. Like, it's very conveniently located. I can get that with my pinky, then delete. I think that's usable. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Mute also works.
Yeah.
I think you can choose either.
Yeah. Do not give your power away to anyone. Do not. Please.
Last question from Meha on the live stream. How did you deal with burnout? Like stepping back when you needed before bouncing back, stagnation in your professional growth. Like, how did you move through these phases?
Meha, you said ask that question?
Yeah.
Thank you for asking that question. Because burnout is everywhere these days. Especially the pandemic has created situations which on the one hand I admire, because as a mother, if your nanny doesn't show up, if your daycare is closed, obviously you're going to do what it needs to take care of people, whether they are your children, your parents, whoever needs care. But we are now at a point where we need to rethink burnout. So I will share with you, and that's what I do in my story. I share with you where I learned the strategies, how I learned to cope with the strategies. For me, the period where I was so burnt out, Colleen, I have never experienced that low energy in my entire life until I unexpectedly and suddenly became a single mother. I had my first role that I described where I was a sales leader. I had a $120 million quota. I haven't described that role. Okay.
No,
I had
one.
This is a new one. My first promotion, $120 million quota, 10 people reporting to me, and it was a hard-earned promotion for me. And suddenly and unexpectedly, I became a single mother. My children were 2 and 4. And I thought I couldn't do it. I couldn't be a single mom, and I couldn't be a leader. And I came this close to giving up my leadership role because I was not going to give up my children. I was just so burnt out just from the sheer number of tasks that needed to be done before I dropped the kids to school, after I picked them up from school, everything that needed to be done at home. My ex-husband was my 50% partner in taking care of our home, in taking care of our children, and now I didn't even have enough hours in the day to finish all those tasks. And I would show up to work burnt out, sleep deprived, overwhelmed, preoccupied, couldn't focus my attention on my work, thinking of all the things I had to do when I went back, go there, do all those tasks, get even more burnt out, show up to work like a zombie. And one Friday afternoon, my boss was in town from LA. We were having this meeting, and someone turned to me and said, "So what's your perspective?" And I looked at them with a glazed look. I didn't even know what conversation they were having. I was so burnt out. I was so preoccupied. That began the journey. That evening began the journey of me learning how to prioritize, of me learning how to be present, of me learning how to compartmentalize. What I also learned is that when I was burnt out, I was bringing that burnt out Shelmina to work. It was sub-optimizing my decision making. I was unable to be present. I was unable to contribute value at my maximum capacity. So when we get burnt out, not only are we shortchanging our own selves, we are actually shortchanging the success of our organization. So to understand how to get energized, it's different for each one of us, but create a routine in the morning that energizes you. Feel your energy, check in with yourself throughout the day. Do you need to stop for 5 minutes and take a brisk walk? Do you need to stop for 5 minutes and just do some deep breathing? Do you need to stop for 5 minutes and listen to music that energizes you? Whatever it is, you own it. You own your energy level. This is not anybody else's problem. This was my problem that I had inherited. There are things you can't control. You can't control. They are what they are. How are you going to respond? And so for me, it was taking time for my own inner well-being, because I realized that I took my well-being to every interaction. So when I'm burnt out, I brought the depleted energy to my team. That's not what they were looking for. They were looking for their sales leader to energize them, not deplete them. And so find a way to energize yourself. The second thing is understand your biggest priorities. Focus your attention. Intentionally focus your attention on your biggest priorities. I have an entire chapter on intentional attention as well as intentional work-life balance, where I take you through the how-tos. And as you focus on your highest priorities, that automatically means you say no to your lesser priorities. But I also teach you how to say no, because if you don't say no effectively, you will actually alienate people in your organization. But when you are focused on intentionally focusing your attention on the success of your organization, the highest priorities that will not only make you successful, but will contribute towards the success of your organization, everyone will understand that. They will respect you for it. They will not come to you with lesser priorities because you will create a branding for yourself that I don't waste time doing things that are not my highest priorities, my boss's highest priorities, and my organization's highest priorities. So structure your days around your highest priorities. You will move from being burnt out to being productive. Energize yourself. In the morning, in the middle of the day, whenever you feel like you have less energy, figure out what energizes you. Take those 5 minutes. That will enable you to be productive for the remainder of the day. Because you being burnt out is not good for you, not good for your family, not good for anyone you interact with, and not good for your organization.
I'm in like a +1 on that one. And I think many of you heard me say this, for me, it's like ruthless prioritization and find your Amazon marathon pace. The pace that you can do great work on a continual basis. So I think very similar learnings to you for me personally, which is sort of fun to hear.
I love that.
So lastly, I know that you're involved in various philanthropic work. So I wondered if you could close by telling us a little bit about that.
Oh, wow. So two things are most important for me. One is advancing gender and racial equality in leadership roles. So I spend my time, my money doing that. The second one is also education. My education was my passport out of poverty. And leaving home when I was 15 was painful. And there are students in Tanzania that don't have access to education past 7th grade. I didn't have access to education past 10th grade. And so in 2012, when I got married for the second time, as a gift to the world and the children of Tanzania, for my wedding gift, all the wedding guests actually contributed towards building a school. And we built that school starting 2012. And today my philanthropic efforts are to send the young women from the secondary school that we built to colleges so they can get a college degree, they can get a good job, they can lift themselves and their family out of poverty.
It's awesome. It's been really great having you with us here today, Shelmina. Actually, I think I'm supposed to look at the prompter. Okay, got it. So that's all we have time for today. Shelmina, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you to everyone that joined us in person and online. And if you'd like to revisit this conversation, you will find the Fishbowl posted to inside Amazon, the news section, and I'm sure on broadcast. So thank you very much, and have a great day.
Can I take 2 minutes?
Oh, time out.
I'm going to take 2 minutes because I have an ask. And my ask is that each one of us has the capacity to lead. I would like each one of us to become a tribe that will advance gender and racial equality in leadership roles. This is such a tall order. I cannot do it without all of you, in person or the people listening to us. So what I am asking you to do is be stubbornly determined to emerge as a leader. I am teaching you how. And as you go up, as you rise in the corporate ladder, bring others along with you. Let's change the number of women in leadership roles and other underrepresented minorities. Let's ensure that we are in every room where decisions are being made. When we do that, we will leave a legacy and make our world a better place. So that's my ask. Thank you.
Now clap.
Now clap.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Shelmina.
so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.